internet surfers out there. In my last video, after making absolutely snail's pace progress with this project, to quote my past self, we finally got the longboard outside, on the ground, under my feet, moving my body. Now, this is proof of concept, but there's still a few things that need to be addressed. Most importantly, using 1/4-inch plywood for this weird adapter plate thing was a terrible idea. And while I did get a bit of testing in, it broke before I even left the parking lot.
That's gonna be a pain to fix.
To fix that, I'm going to try to make a 3D printed version since the plastic is stronger than the plywood. Just like the housing last time, I'm going to need to print this in 4 parts, so let's mush those together and abracadabra. This feels really solid, so I'm ready to do a bit more extended testing. Is just... I can't even describe it. Like, I literally feel like I'm flying, even an hour after a ride. Of course, on the other hand, when I make a mistake and the board aggressively flies out from under me with that amount of force, and I'm literally thrown onto my butt, then I feel like I'm falling for the next hour as I replay that in my head. But more on that in a future video.
Alright, well, this happened. Went over a bump and tore it clean off.
I think it's time for some more serious upgrades. I went through a lot of iterations of this interface panel, which is super annoying because it's the one part of this that shouldn't even need to exist. It's an afterthought that isn't even a permanent solution, yet it's needing the most work and the most iterations and seems to be the bane of this project's existence. The version done in quarters was super unstable because of the forces applied to it, so I made a version that's still in 4 parts but with overlapping center parts. That way all 4 parts have 2 screws from the trucks holding them in place instead of just 1. This new version also has a lip going over the sides, so I can have a lot more structure and leverage holding it in place. Also, the current version still has this janky taped together craft foam as padding, which is fragile and annoying. Also, there's some dust and dirt getting up into the electronics, so let's get some proper neoprene up in this boy. Neoprene is the stuff they make wetsuits out of, and you can buy it in thick sheets for not that much that make great padding for stuff like this. Also, the nuts on the bottom here keep falling off, which is another problem that shouldn't need to exist, but since it does, let's get some proper lock nuts up in here. Lock nuts are just like these nuts, except they have a little nylon part in the middle that gives you a ton of friction on the bolt and keeps it from vibrating loose. Just what I need. And then to help with overall shock absorption, absorbing the shock. Let's add some riser shock pads to this thing. And finally, all else fails, I can just get even bigger wheels. I'm hoping that I don't have to because good longboard wheels are not cheap. Let's replace the wheels for something just slightly bigger to give me more clearance, much softer to help with the ride, and most importantly, black. I didn't get any footage of me actually riding with this version of the adapter plate. Spoiler alert, the padding did help, but the new panel still broke again.
Alright, this one was kinda unexpected, because I thought by making this super thick it's resistant to like the up and down vibrations, which it was, but what caused this specific break in this specific way, I'm pretty sure when I hit a bump at high speed, this thing is moving forward, and then all of a sudden, boom, it jolts backwards. This thing, with the mass of 2 batteries and an ESC and everything in there, continues its momentum forward, and all that force is on these screws, so this is what gave. And it actually forced the plastic outward this way instead of the compression force that broke it this way. So I need to figure out how to prevent that from happening again.
So clearly both wood and plastic just will not cut it, so let's move on to metal. I ordered this part from Send Cut Send, which is an awesome online service, and I might be going back to them in the future. Now, the only way to properly test the true quality of a material is by its sound. Exquisite. Now let's sand this thing down so we can paint it.
Oh, this hurts my soul.
I also want to make a countersink in this so that the screws will sit flush, but I don't have a countersink bit and didn't feel like buying one.
No idea if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna try it anyway. So this is without DIY countersink and with DIY countersink.
I think that worked well enough, so I'm gonna whip together a little stand for this thing out of the coat hanger and get to painting. I'm gonna cut out another special piece of neoprene specifically to go between this plate and the deck, mostly because I don't want it sitting directly on the grip tape getting scratched up. Let's also tape on the one I made before for the top and get to work installing this thing. With that ready to go, it's time to take this thing outside and give it another test. I'm feeling good about this one. As you can see, it looks so much more professional, and it is like riding a cloud. I went so rough on this thing, and it did not bat an eye. Once I get more comfortable with the build, being able to take some hits, I'll be able to focus on honing my own skills, because right now I'm like, oh no, gotta make sure this doesn't break and gotta keep an eye on this. Are the electronics working right, etc. as I'm learning to ride it for the first time. So really I need to continuously test it under increasingly harsh conditions and make the build more and more solid and padded until I'm comfortable it'll be able to take any rough ride I throw at it. What was that? Was that me or did I roll over something? False alarm, it was not the longboard, it was just a random part of a saw blade in the middle of the road or something. I'll take this home. Alright, I said I would get to this later. You've seen this little thing sticking up on the front of the board, and that's a mount that I designed and 3D printed specifically for this headlight. It's been working really well, but the headlight is super cheap and something inside it rattles. Check this out. Let's take this thing apart and see if we can figure out how to make it less annoying. I think it's mostly this front LED panel rattling inside the housing, so let's cut out a bit of that craft foam I was using earlier and see if that'll give some padding to dampen the sound. The rear light had the same problem, so I went ahead and did the same fix, and what do you know? It's completely silent. With a new version of the headlight mount fresh off the printer, let's swap that out here because this has a very cool upgrade. The clip that came with the headlight slots in like this, which is the same as the old version, held in place with a screw on top, but what's this little cap nut for? Well, that is so I can take this GoPro joint and put it in this little slot here, screw it tightly into place, and now I can put a GoPro on there. Let's get the headlight into its little clip, and here is the FoxGeek CamWorld Action Camera 4K PC webcam sports camera Wi-Fi underwater waterproof camera with... Yeah, so I got a knockoff Chinese GoPro. It was only $70 and the mount works great, but the camera is about what you'd expect from a $70 knockoff GoPro. The footage is technically 4K, but you can hardly tell because it's compressed to oblivion and the colors are terrible. It also advertised 30 FPS at 4K resolution in the description, but in reality it only does 25, so that was a straight up lie. And that's why the footage looks so choppy here, because there's a bunch of frames missing. The audio, even on a real GoPro, is not phenomenal, but on this thing I probably could have got a literal potato to sound better.
Alright, we are outdoors. I'm probably just going to do one long recording because I only have the selfie stick, but let's see how this turns out.
It does have a couple of stabilization modes, but honestly it doesn't make much difference. It's just bad and slightly less bad. Now, as much as I'm bashing on this thing, it does output an image that is sort of usable in 3 cases that I can think of top of my head. Case 1, it's all I've got on hand. It is a lot better than nothing. Case 2, I'm out of cameras and really need another angle for a multicam shot. I could see using this for that. Again, it's better than nothing. Case 3, I have something super high risk that I want to film and don't want to lose anything I care about. This is one of the cheapest action cameras I could find that isn't a complete scam, so I wouldn't cry too hard if it fell off a cliff. The thing that makes it most useless for this specific situation is the fact that it has a rolling shutter. Pair this with its basically non-existent stabilization and it makes vibrations completely ruin a shot. I put it on the headlight mount and check out these crazy artifacts it picked up from being jiggled around erratically at high frequency. The footage is just squishing and stretching and glitching all over the place. It is just really terrible. Also, the audio is of course even worse on the mount. Brace yourself, headphone users, in 3, 2, 1. All that said, I did have a lot of fun with it, and it was a great introduction to the world of action cameras, which I'd never really touched before. It kind of opened my eyes to new possibilities of shots that I can't get with my phone, at least not safely. Fortunately, thanks to my awesome patrons, you guys gave me enough to buy a real GoPro. This is the Hero 10, and it's freaking amazing. This is the GoPro on the board mount with no additional padding, and the stabilization is on the lowest setting. Now, real GoPros also use rolling shutter, but the key difference lies in that stabilization. I'm actually not sure the Hero 8 wouldn't suffer the same problems that the cheapo cam did because they both use entirely digital stabilization. I almost bought the 8 because it's arguably a better bang for your buck, but I knew that stabilization was going to be absolutely critical, and I read that this was one of the main huge upgrades of the 9 and 10. Specifically, the introduction of in-body image stabilization. This means instead of just correcting movements in software, there's a physical mechanism that moves inside the camera to correct movements before they're even captured. This technology is perfect to cancel out the tiny yet mighty vibrations that it gets from being directly mounted to a longboard deck. But wait, it doesn't stop there. On top of the IBIS, it also has amazing digital stabilization, which is applied on larger movements to give it what they call gimbal-like footage. While the IBIS takes care of micro vibrations, their hypersmooth algorithm is great for bigger things like sharp turns and even speed bumps, which it handles like a freaking cloud. It also records in not only 4K 30, but even 4K 60 FPS if I really needed the combination of resolution and frame rate. And even the audio is not terrible. Like, even when it's on the board, it's of course still pretty useless, but not nearly as bad as the knockoff. And just as a test, here's super view with a little bit of the board visible in there. I don't know if there's going to be enough horizon, but let's see. I've been using this a lot since I got it a couple of years ago. I teased it in my 2023 New Year video and used it in both of the following videos that came before this one, and it's been amazing. Anyway, enough about that. This longboard is awesome. Now, these talk-to-camera parts were recorded in the future, but I did get it rideable in time for school at time of filming. I would ride it to my local public transport train station, then take the train to the station near the school, and then ride the board from that station to campus. And it saved a ton of gas. I didn't have to pay for a parking permit, it kept me in shape, and it was just generally super fun. I even used it to get between classes because I had some that were back-to-back and on opposite ends of the campus. So that would have made it impossible to be on time if I walked. But with this thing, shoop! I also rode it to work occasionally, friends' houses, other places, and it's kind of hard to believe that this is still just a first prototype. Now, I haven't done much with it in the time between when that was filmed and now, but boy do I have plans for the future. Now, I needed to build this as a regular electric longboard before anything else because I've never stepped foot into that realm before, and I'll be gradually improving my skills and bumping up the power with it as I feel comfortable. But now that I've got a feel for things, I can move forward with my grand plan for this. I have so many ideas in the works, and by the time it's done, I'll be trying to design something that has never been done before, as far as I know. The next video in this series will be a bit more in-depth look at my experience as I actually learn to ride an electric longboard in general, and that'll include a lot more of the cool shots that I captured on the road with this thing. But before that, now that the board is rideable, I can actually finish this work table! That's right, you're actually seeing this further along than I left it in the first video, and the next one will be the stunning conclusion where I put on some finishing touches and add even more features. If you don't want to miss any of that, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and my upload schedule is non-existent, so make sure to tick the little bell if you want to get notified when new videos come out. And if this video tickled your funny bone, go ahead and tickle the like button. It likes that. Not in a weird way. This has been one of my most expensive projects from the get-go, so if you want to help out and make it possible to do even crazier things, head over to patreon.com/DavisDirks and just sign up for whatever you can afford. Every dollar counts, and every dollar will come right back at you in the form of better content. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, make a thing, sing a song, hug a person. I'll catch you later. Lock nuts are just like these nuts. I'm gonna need to say that with a straight face. Lock nuts are just like these nuts, except... Gosh dang it.
Oh, let's see, we've got a bit of a, Hellspawn lemon.
Let's swap that out. Okay.